The story continues after Shadow wins against the vampire. Now, Shadow is looking for the last boss's body, but it can't find it. Shadow is puzzled because it was expecting a big final boss fight. However, he starts to think that maybe this is an event where everyone is supposed to team up for group battle, and there might not be a real boss battle. To be certain, Shadow decides to check the underground. If it doesn't discover anything there, it plans to take the money and go back home. After he leaves, the heart of the queen vampire starts growing. The scene changes to Claire and Marie. Claire is searching for Sid, while Marie is searching for Queen Elizabeth. Claire can't find Sid anywhere, and begins to wonder if Sid wasn't the intended sacrifice. On the other hand, Marie also can't find Elizabeth, and is puzzled by what's happening. Suddenly, she senses something and warns Claire to be careful. However, the Blood Queen uses one of her hairs to stab Claire, causing her to collapse. Marie desperately pleads with the Queen not to kill Claire, but it seems the Queen isn't listening. The Queen drags Claire closer and reveals her vampire teeth, preparing to suck Claire's blood. Marie doesn't know what to do since she can't take on the Blood Queen by herself. Just then, the members of Shadow Garden who are present in the tower arrive. They free Claire from Elizabeth's grasp and decapitate Elizabeth number 664. They realize that Claire is still alive, but emergency first aid won't be enough to save her. Beta, one of the Shadow Garden members, believes they can't make a quick escape right now because their leader hasn't revealed himself yet. This suggests he has something more important to attend to. Beta thinks that their leader has entrusted her with handling this situation, and she can't let Lord Shadow's sister die. Beta then asks 664 to continue looking after Claire and requests assistance from 665 and Rose. Shadow Garden engages in a battle with Elizabeth, but Elizabeth manages to stop Rose and number 665. Beta, in the meantime, cuts off Elizabeth's hand and blasts her with magic. Marie realizes that this may not be enough to defeat her queen and mentions that her queen has always been slow to gain power due to low blood pressure. Elizabeth heals herself and releases her true magical energy, which is even greater than Alpha's. Seeing this, Yukame thinks she has to leave. Juggernaut then arrives and strikes Elizabeth, but she slams him into the wall and attacks everyone by controlling drops of blood. Shadow Garden tries to protect Claire, but the attacks leave Juggernaut heavily wounded, making Yukame think he's now useless. Numbers 664 and 665 are heavily injured, and Beta and Rose are slightly injured, but Elizabeth shows no signs of fatigue. Beta realizes that Elizabeth is increasing her power by taking their blood and tells Rose to take Claire and leave because Rose still has unfinished business. Beta attempts to attack Elizabeth, but Elizabeth somehow takes control of the possessed blood in the members of Shadow Garden, causing them to transform. Beta can't believe that Elizabeth can interfere with the blessings given to them by Lord Shadow. This also leads to Claire transforming into a monster. The scene shifts to Claire waking up in her own inner world. In this place, she meets someone named Aurora. Aurora tells Claire that the possession that has been troubling her was actually cured a long time ago. Claire finds this hard to believe and wonders who could have cured her. Aurora explains that it was someone Claire knows very well, but Claire is confused and doesn't know who Aurora is referring to. Aurora then goes on to say that Claire had been adapting to some special powers, but she lost control. Soon, her body would start to deteriorate. Aurora offers to help Claire with this situation, though Claire is puzzled by what Aurora means. Claire asks Aurora where she is and who she's talking to, and also about the person who cured her. Aurora realizes that Claire has many questions and tries to clarify things. She explains that Claire's blood has split into two different types due to adaptation. These two types are the possessed and the progenitor vampire, each with distinct characteristics. Right now, these two types of blood are trying to adapt within Claire, and her body is suitable for this change. However, Claire doesn't know how to control it, which is why her blood has become uncontrollable. Aurora senses that her time in the conversation is ending, and she marks Claire's hand with a strange symbol, telling her that this mark will help her learn to control her powers. Claire was curious and asked Aurora to explain things in more detail. Aurora, however, pointed out that time was running out because things were getting chaotic outside. Claire then questioned who Aurora was and why she was helping her. Aurora introduced herself and revealed that she was assisting Claire because she belonged to Shadow. In the real world, Cleric transformed into Aurora, giving her a taste of freedom after a month of being confined. Beta, a member of Shadow Garden, inquired about what happened to Claire, and Aurora clarified that she was merely altering her appearance, similar to how Shadow changes his appearance. Elizabeth, the Blood Queen, launched an attack using drops of her blood, but Aurora stopped the blood in midair. She explained that gaining control of blood outside the body was not a big challenge. Aurora retaliated against Elizabeth using the same blood, and they engaged in a battle using blood as their weapon. Juggernaut observed the fight, finding it quite intense, and Yukime agreed. Aurora then mentioned that she would demonstrate the most powerful ability in the world as a bonus and attempted to use Shadow's atomic attack. However, her current body couldn't handle such immense power. Elizabeth fully healed herself, and Aurora stated that her purpose was to buy time until Shadow arrived. Shadow finally appeared and declared that the hour of awakening had come. Elizabeth tried to attack Shadow with blood-based attacks, but Shadow countered them using his slime suit. Marie was astonished that Shadow could hold his own against Queen Elizabeth, and that he was even more powerful than the Witch of Calamity. Beta questioned why Shadow was prolonging the exchange of blows, believing he was well within striking distance to defeat Elizabeth in a single strike. Shadow protected the members of Shadow Garden from Elizabeth's stray attacks. Beta realized that Shadow was shielding them from Elizabeth's onslaught, knowing that they were currently defenseless. Shadow emphasized that he couldn't afford to lose a single member, regardless of the challenges they faced. This confirmed Beta's belief that Shadow was determined to protect his team from Elizabeth's attack. Shadow reiterated that he couldn't afford to lose anyone from his team. Beta is in awe that Shadow cares so deeply for her, but it turns out he's not talking about her, he's talking about the gold coins. Beta continues with her own thoughts, and Shadow thinks he can't afford to lose any more of those coins. He faces Elizabeth in close combat, and the two engage in a spectacular fight, impressing numbers 664 and 665 with their lord's power. Juggernaut wonders how Shadow can fly through the sky, and Yukime thinks he's a surprising individual. As Shadow and Elizabeth continue their intense battle, Shadow feels that the game has dragged on for too long. Elizabeth, on the other hand, asks for Shadow's name. He responds by preparing his atomic attack, despite Marie's plea for him not to use it. Shadow unleashes the recovery atomic attack, which not only cures those who turned into ghouls or showed signs of possession, but also heals injury and nullifies the red moon. Beta believes that ETA, someone likely from their group, will find this information very interesting. With their mission complete, Shadow Garden departs. Marie reunites with Queen Elizabeth, and Juggernaut contemplates the idea of picking a fight with Shadow Garden. Next, the scene shifts to Sid's friends, Goldie and Quentin, at the train station. They express disappointment in not accomplishing their objectives for coming here. Claire says her goodbyes to Marie, and Sid believes that ghouls, vampires, and the possessed are just different terms for a magic overload, which can be cured. However, there are afflictions that can't be cured. Sid notices her sister, Claire, talking to herself about having special powers and wonders if her destiny is leading her somewhere. On the train ride back home, Sid thinks her sister might have delusions of grandeur, but she can't dismiss her pain, as all children have walked a similar path at some point. Sid believes that brushing off a child's concerns can lead them down the wrong path. Claire then mentions that she needs to tell Sid something important. Special powers have taken root in her left hand, and she must solve the mystery of these powers. Sid reassures Claire, telling her he knows she will be okay, and no matter what path she chooses, he will support her. However, Sid still believes that his sister is delusional. As the train departs the station, Claire asks Sid if he knows about Shadow. Sid recalls that Shadow is the person who burned down their school, and he wonders why Claire is curious about him. Claire dismisses the topic. Sid believes that Claire will face many trials and tribulations, needing to confront her anxiety, pain, and the realities of her situation. He feels helpless as her hand starts tingling. Sid acknowledges that they've been through a lot, and this event is finally over. Although he had some setbacks and only managed to recover 500 gold coins, it's still a substantial amount. He thinks that the lawless city will always be there, with 2 towers still standing, and he can return if he faces financial difficulties because the lawless city is like his piggy bank. The scene shifts to Shadow meeting Yuki on a train, and he asks her about what she wanted to talk to him about. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for more anime recap.